Just with gentleness and openness, curiosity and kindness, we bring this cultivation of awareness to what we call this moment, this body, this breath. And as we move into the period of the afternoon, we begin to integrate, to connect, to see the connections between the different pieces of what sometimes seem to be separate aspects of our practice or being. And this requires a certain very gentle attention without any forcing or striving to analyze or think. And perhaps a couple of questions have come up during lunch. And the invitation is to stay in the question through the afternoon without striving or pushing to answer it in a cognitive, thinking, rational way. And just see if the question starts to perhaps be answered by your lived experience. We see that there are other ways of being in addition to our thinking. And this is what the cultivation of mindful awareness can bring to the fullness of our lives as they unfold in every moment. And so during this sit, we're going to perhaps explore some different angles, and perhaps, if you want to call it, a bit of a deeper practice. But in reality, every practice is important. And if we bring the qualities of intention, the practice will be as deep as it needs to be. Alan Watts said, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." You are under no obligation to be the person you were 5 minutes ago. And as we notice the ebb and flow of our thoughts and feelings and the impermanence of it, as we've spoken of this morning, as we notice the transitions from one moment to the next, the arising and falling, as we recognize the pitfalls of thinking or believing stories that no longer work for us, as we ossify and harden falsely the belief of this absolute true self and identity that Phil spoke of. And as we bring all those pieces of awareness together, we enter a space which is the peace of our being. It's not that stories are not useful, they are. They help us move in the world out there in a very instrumental and utilitarian way. We need an identity to make sure that the bank can trust us with taking money out the right account. But all of that is utilitarian. The vastness of our humanity goes inwards very, very deeply. And we live it and talk between the interior world and the outside world, hoping to find a greater sense of equanimity and gentility and take our place to meet the light and the dark. So peace becomes an end in itself. It is a better way to be. And it is also a stepping stone. And peace takes its place amidst all the other stuff. If you visualize the yin yang symbol, both the dark and the light complement and define and hold and are in relation to each other. And the curvy line between the two of them is this harmonic interface where neither one is ignored or neglected or pushed aside or disavowed or judged or ridiculed or criticized or belittled or ignored. But each one takes its place without trying to dominate inappropriately the other. They live together in a harmonic. And as Carl Jung said, as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. We don't deny the darkness, the pain, the suffering, the conflict, the tension, the grief, the loss, the trauma. We don't deny it at all. And mindfulness gives us this capacity to be with it so that we can engage it skillfully and gently with a wise judgment or discernment. Things are not good or bad. They might be pleasant or unpleasant. There's no need to criticize any experience. What we want to do is to meet it, understand it, why am I thinking this way? What are my old patterns and stories? And then to be listening carefully to the question we heard earlier on, who or what is calling to be heard? So as we drop in further with this sit, we come to these greater parts of our being present, the body, breath, the heart. We just stay open and curious and gentle in the question, what is being called? What is inviting attention? What is called for? And we listen quietly for those qualities that will answer the question from other than a place of thinking. Is there some way or some piece of darkness that has started to dim the candle of lightness and kindness and compassion that Paul Jung is speaking to? So we identify the difficulties. We lean into them, not to wallow in them, not to linger in them, but we need to just at least be with them. The freedom to see them as they are without resistance. And to see them in some sense as experiences which are real. We experience these things. And then we ask ourselves what or who is calling and what is called for in order to meet this. And for every one of us, in any moment, that answer will be different. There are things in our internal world that are being called for, and we are being called to. There are things in our relationships, our work, our community, the planet. Mindfulness allows us this little space to choose our response, to prioritize with kindness and humility to do what we can. And the list of ingredients that are available in the heart are many. So for each of us right now, there might be something that is calling your attention. You might be experiencing it as a sense in the body. It might be an awareness of something lingering from the past. It might be something related to your current circumstances. It could be a thought or a feeling. And just for this sit, you just be in touch with that. Staying open, curious, and gentle. To stay in that question. And as Phil said, if it's too heavy, the spot is too hot, you're free to move away from it for a while. So you can titrate your exposure to it and give yourself a break compassionately at your own pace. Mindfulness creates this opening to a heart full of practices and ways of being. And here's just a partial list of things that perhaps you might be able to notice. Peace, calm, ease, curiosity, acceptance, not resisting, allowing, letting go, not being attached to trying to force something you can't force. Becoming aware of how old stories and yes buts and justifications get in the way of you perhaps feeling better. There's an acronym, PBJ, and everybody loves some combination of PBJ. Peace, beauty, and joy. Whenever there is distress, or distraction, or pain, or dis-ease, irritability, in other words, a lack of peace, we need to investigate, see what it's about, And no matter what the causes or circumstances of that arising, we can still come back and look for peace. When there's war within ourselves, we can look for a ceasefire and a peace treaty. The B of PBJ. B is beauty. When things are ugly, when those parts of us that we don't necessarily like, we can call them the unconscious or the buried or the shadow or our imperfections, the parts of us that we would rather not show, the bits of us that we're embarrassed or humiliated or shameful about. And we believe they're ugly. They may not be. They are just perhaps asking for gentility and beauty to come sit alongside them. So to ugliness, we bring beauty. And the third of these three musketeers is joy. When there is sorrow and sadness, and we find ourselves being flooded and wallowing in it without denying the sadness or the pain. At some point, we set an intention to find lightness in the dark in the form of joy. So in the course of the day, I will find experiences of a lack of peace. I will find periods of ugliness. I will find periods of pain and sorrow. But I need to go looking for them. They show up, they're part of life. And when I do, with equanimity and balance and intention and attention, I can bring the appropriate response. And as we go through our day, in every single moment, we can ask ourselves, who or what is Allan in this moment? We pay attention on purpose to become aware. If we're on course and the sailing is smooth and things are in alignment and things are getting done and there is a sense of ease, then perhaps there's no need to change course. We just do more of what's working. That's called skillful means. If things are out of whack, what's called for? So every unpleasant feeling is actually a beautiful invitation to discover what is called for. This is not fancy. When I'm hungry, the unpleasant hunger tells me that perhaps I need to find some food. So hidden in the hunger is the desire, the path correction. When I'm tired, irritable, and can't think anymore because I'm exhausted, there's a beautiful invitation to go to sleep or nap or rest. When I'm shivering because I'm underdressed outside when it's -20, the shivering is very unpleasant. It's an invitation to get warm. So, in fact, by leaning into the unpleasant, there's always a little pearl inside if we just sit with it long enough and listen to what is called for. So, mindfulness is both a process of paying attention on purpose to the fullness of our experience, and it's also mindfulness of what is going on. There's a content to what I can be paying attention to. And just like the yin yang, the being and the doing are not separate. With a slight shift, we can also become aware of how my being with this piece of doing. And if we're being okay with it, we can slightly shift our attention just across that line to the doing. The two wings that support the bird, the wisdom and the compassion. Thinking and feeling, perceptions, sensing, the heart, the spirit, intuition, deeper kinds of knowing beyond words. They're all there. In the stillness of the silence, if we listen, we hear the whispers of the heart. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Joy and love and peace and beauty, kindness and forgiveness and compassion, openness, curiosity, a sense of coming alive, reorienting your spirit. All of it is available. So perhaps taking a couple of deeper breaths at your own pace, following the breath all the way in, the pause, lengthening the breath a bit to at least 1 second longer than the in-breath, 3 times at your own pace. And if your eyes have been closed, just noticing the moment at which they decide to open. We're going to be transitioning again.